All right, so we are on air. Perfect. So starting off with what to archive. What do we need to archive and what not? Now we have a very, very good, well-made document bulletin from the NARA that has always been providing us with a lot of information for institutions, national archives, and it has a paragraph that it really, really is very, very, I would say, thorough in terms of letting you know what to archive, what is considered as social media, what is considered as archivable data, not from a technology perspective, but from a compliance or from a preservation perspective. Now we're just going to go through them quickly. They're pretty straightforward. First thing, you have to archive any kind of social media application if you're under a regulation or if you're under some type of public records rules. You have to capture the social media applications. Now, application by that, we have some great examples: Twitter, Facebook, Yammer, Pinterest, Chatter. Depending on the ones you use, depending on the platform you use, anything you use to communicate with the outside world, or anything that is business conducted on, or any type of communication that has some kind of business nature or institutional nature, depending on the nature of the, I would say, nature of the business that you're conducting with those social media sites, have to be archived. By that, comments, any kind of posts, any kind of pictures, videos, anything that is posted has to be archived. What content? Very, very important. A lot of institutions tend to leave that on the side, and everybody's just focusing on social media applications, and they forget to sort of archive the blogs, the wikis, any mention of them in certain blogs. For example, we have very popular blogs that sort of give mention, and a lot of discussions are going on that particular institution, and the institution is not even aware of the discussion that is going on. So it's very, very good to sort of have some kind of technology that is able to go ahead and archive the web. And we're going to talk about different approaches, and I'll tell you which one is best for different applications. Second, other than social media, we're talking about websites. Now, web archiving. Now, all of this is web archiving, whether it's social media or not. But more importantly, we're talking about personal, means that your intranet, your internal discussions, if you're subject to some type of internal policies, as well as the public publishing of a website. For example, you have your own website and 5 or 10 other related websites. Well, you have to archive them if there is any kind of dynamic content, or, well, websites are pretty much the message that you're sending to everyone. So it is considered as part of a digital record, and especially a record that sort of addresses millions of users sometimes. So you have to archive it, or you got to keep a copy of it. Then there's the frequency that comes in, but it's really different from, it's an institution to another, and it's really related to the frequency of updating that particular website. So we're going to talk about the frequency a little bit later. Then comes in the most important part here, web archives collection. Some institutions, whether libraries or universities or public institutions, have to collect and make the websites that they're collecting or the social media give public access to these content. And that is a little bit different from the other types of archiving where everything is kept private, access is private, and we're talking about different features and all that. Here we're talking about public collections where anyone can come and access these particular content that are made available for the public. It's another type of archiving, and we're just going to try to cover as much as we can from both and try to differentiate both on types of feature and types of choosing the right solution for you if you're looking at giving any kind of public access or any kind of private access. All right, so these are the content to archive. Now, how to do it, how to archive it, we're going to try to explore some of the web and social media archiving approaches. Now, how this is made as of today. There are different approaches, but we've taken the 3 most popular ones, and I would say nowadays it's pretty much got back to only 2 of them. First one is API-based capture. The most popular capture for social media. We find multiple vendors, tons of applications, a lot of companies doing this, and almost everyone is having some kind of solution that uses the API of the particular application that you want to preserve. What does this mean? It means it would connect to the particular application, just like Facebook, Twitter, and pull the data from that particular application. We'll just get to that in a second. Website copiers, very similar to HTTrack, it's some kind of a technology that it has the same DNA as a save as you would do of a website, where you would just save the website, and you do a save as on the particular page, but it's on another scale and it's so much better, but it sort of shares the same DNA as that. HTTrack is one of the perfect examples. We've been using this for years, and we'll talk about the solutions about it. Third, and my personal favorite, is the native format approach. Now, this is the most popular approach to web, as well as not really targeted to social media archiving from a way, but from a preservation point of view. This is the only way to preserve the exact same visual representation of any web content. We're talking about social media, blogs, websites, anything, any kind of system, any kind of web content. The robot crawlers, so using the spiders or using any kind of crawlers, the native format type of approach is the way to go. We'll just go and try to sort of explore each one of them, giving you some of the advantages and some of the, as well as some of the use cases that you would use a certain approach for. Now, starting with the API-based capture, and you can see here some examples on Yammer, Chatter, Facebook. Most of the social media websites as of today are giving us some type of API that we can connect to and develop our software so we can connect to and get the data from that particular application. Well, it has a lot of advantages, and in some cases is the best fit. And I'll tell you what cases these are. Let's start with some of the advantages of it, some of the great features about it. Well, the first thing you can notice, it's real-time capture. Since it's connecting to the API of the particular application through the API, it is constantly connected with the application, which means if someone posts something on Facebook, Facebook gets it. Your software, your social media archiving software gets it real time. It doesn't have to go and archive it. It doesn't have to go through a schedule or anything. It's real time. As long as it's connected, it's going to work perfectly. Active connection with the application, we call this data stream. And in that particular case, this solves most compliance problems where you have to be 100% not missing any kind of content that is mentioned on your account or any type of content that is posted, picture, videos sometimes, if the application is supporting it again. The third and very good advantage is that with getting all this data, usually it's pulling text and using also it's pulling images. It could use this, and certain solutions offer some type of analytics and compliance tools that will allow you to sort of run some analytics and do some kind of analysis on a particular page. And if it's from a marketing point of view, if it's from institutional point of view, you're sort of capturing an event, capturing any type of election or anything. This is very helpful when you're trying to sort of capture everything of the social media accounts that you're set up for. Helps a lot. And fourth, you'll understand it, but it's the best complement to cover compliance need. Why is it complement? Because if you're looking at a preservation software or some kind of a preservation way to preserve web and social media, API approach sort of captures all the content, but it's more about a content-oriented than a preservation-oriented solution. It's not really the same thing as a native format approach where you're pretty much keeping the exact same visual representation, but you're constantly connected. So the best thing here, and my personal advice, is to go both. And it is because of the prices of today and because of the more affordable solutions, especially on the API-based social media capture solutions, you can do both, an institution can do both, and can have sort of real-time capture as well as a perfect visual representation of the particular page and serve it. So we wouldn't miss anything either from compliance or either for compliance reasons or for preservation reasons. And you can sort of play around with both and have both at the same time. It really depends on your needs. But that is the API-based capture. I have a very good example for you. All right, so this is what I'm talking about. Let me get back here. Perfect. So this is two screenshots taken for two Facebook accounts. First one on the left is taken with our software, Kama Cloud. It's pretty much on a native format, web archiving tool where it captures Facebook as it is and leaves it as it is. You can see this is an old archive from 2011. So even Facebook didn't have the timeline before. So that is the preservation of the page, how it is. On the right side, we have the API. It's captured with PHX, which is our other software that connects through the API and is more for compliance issues. And you can see that it doesn't look quite the same. Why? Because PHX is just gathering the text, images, the information, and putting it together in a way where you can understand it, that it's comments, but it's still not capturing the exact same page as would a user see the page when he would access it. So if you want to have a true user experience, visual representation, it's native format. If you want to follow every single comment and post that sort of is posted real time, you go with the API. But if you have both, you could see the result. You never miss any kind of comment, and you still keep the Facebook or any other application's exact representation. So that's about the API, because a lot of people sort of confuse them or confuse both of them, or sort of try to decide whether I go with API or I go with native format. These are two different things that are intended for different uses, and they complement each other in certain situations. So now we're going to be moving to native format web archiving. Let me just pull this up again. Perfect. So native format web archiving. What is native format web archiving? Is a good question. It sort of, to sums it all, to sort of simplify it as much as we can, we divided it in three main steps. And these three main steps usually are, the first is capture of web content, and that is through web crawlers. Now this approach is different from technology to another, I would say from a vendor to another, or from kind of any entity that's doing some kind of web archiving. Native format web archiving is kind of taking a different approach on the capture, but the result is pretty much the same. It's a replayable website at the end, and you can just surf the website. I'll show you how it looks like at the end. Second step is the storage of collected data in ISO standard file format container, and that is the one and only work file format. Now work file format, what it is, it's the standard file format for web archives. There's nothing else. It used to be the ARC file format before, but since 2009 approved, and it's an ISO standard work file format. We're going to have a complete section talking about the work file format and explain it in details and giving you why you should always look for the work file format when choosing a web archiving solution, or just going into web archiving at all. Third is the most visual here. It's most visual step. Most of you have already heard about the Wayback Machine, and I've seen the results, and that accessing the Wayback Machine is pretty much accessing the third step, which is the playback of archived web content as if they were live, and they're not live. They're pretty much accessing the archives, and you've accessed and sort of went through the website and surfed it as if it was live, but it's just pretty much a clone of the original website that might or not be existing anymore. So this is sort of to sum all of the native format web archiving. Now it has a lot more into it, but we're going to keep it simple today and sort of approaching this type of capture. And we'll get back to the native file format and sort of explain a little bit more verbally and a little bit more details, but I sort of prefer to go through the Word file format because a lot of confusion with the file formats, and a lot of people don't even know what type of file format that the web archives have after they're captured. We'll start with the Word file format. What it is, it's a container. It contains all the information about the archive data. You can see there's a very, very good example here. It gives you a lot of information, and it has standards. It's fully documented. It's open. It's an ISO standard file format, which means everyone can access and read it and understand it. Now let's go through the advantages here. Well, everybody knows the advantages of using a standard file format, but in this particular case, what it gives us in reality is the playback in any compatible engine. And I have a perfect example, which means that if you use different crawlers, different technologies to capture the data, if it's stored in a Word file format, theoretically, if the Word file format is compliant, you are able to replay it in any kind of playback compatible engine. You can replay it with our own engine, which is called Cobalt, available. You can replay it with the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, WorkTools. There's a perfect project that has a WorkTools project. It has a playback engine in it. Plenty of open source, free, paid playback tools that you can replay your web archives with. What does this mean? It means that if you ever pay for a service, or if you ever go with a certain technology, that you always have some kind of exit strategies, and you know that your data is your own. And that brings us up to the third point here, and I'm going to go back to the second point, where it says true ownership of web archives. Now understand most of you are coming from institutions. And one of the important points in institutions is that owning the data is key. Now if you would go with a vendor or any kind of service or any kind of remote service or someone is archiving for you, you would have to make sure, and this is well written about in the NARA bulletin, where they do not really give you exactly what should happen, but they talk about the way that you have to own your archives and you have to have some kind of way to replay them even if the vendor is not available anymore or the service terminated. Now the only way of doing it is pretty much going with a standard file format or a compatible file format with the Word file format or anything that sort of has the same DNA. Now I've taken an example from one of our terms of services, and it says after you've sort of terminated the agreement or after there's the service is done, you would get your data in an ISO Word file format. Now this is some kind of an application if you want to really see how this applies to web archiving from what the NARA was saying about gathering your data if the contract is terminated or if you don't want to stay with the service anymore or anything happens. You will have to make sure that whoever you're going with is going to hand you over the data in some kind of format where you could, it's sort of useful at the end, not really useless format where you can't do anything with it other than just, gigabytes of data. You would have to sort of be able to replay it. Now, for example, just giving you an example on what we do, we give you the data, plus we always hand you over a playback engine. You could still always play back the tool, wherever, play back the web archives, wherever they are. So just to show that it's not just replayable on our own infrastructure, where it's replayable anywhere. You can even replay it on your laptop if they're not too big. So that's what means true ownership of your web archives if they are in Word file format. There might have been, or there might still be, other file formats that are used by different other technologies. I know some of them are compatible with the Word file format, so I would suggest going with those, as well as just make sure that it's sort of, you have some kind of exit strategy at the end. Now, going through the second one, and one of the perks of having a standard file format is that a bunch of developers will just go ahead and start giving you SDKs, giving you tools, The community of web archiving is sharing a lot of open source or not even open source projects. Even ourselves, we offer the WSDK, which is an SDK to manipulate work file formats. There is the work tools been done by Enzo Archives, as well as funded by the IIPC, GWAT project, different other projects in different languages, and just pick whatever you want. And these tools allow you to manipulate work file formats and implement new features or sort of enhance the web archives experience that you have, as opposed to having some sort of technology that you can't really have any kind of addition to it. It's like having a phone without sort of an app store. So this is one of the good things about the work file format, is there's a lot of tools available. And if you want to do analysis, or if you want to do analytics, if you want to do anything, these tools will allow you to manipulate and count records or do anything. So it's sort of some kind of an additional freedom if you want to look at it that way. I have another example here of showing you the importance of work file format. Now this is the same website. Has been archived with two different crawlers. The one on the left has been archived by Internet Archive, and it's replaying on the Wayback Machine. So it's by Internet Archive replaying on the Wayback Machine. The one on the right has been archived by Aleph Archives. It was archived, I believe, with CAN Personal Web Archiving, the crawler, and replaying on the same Wayback Machine with no troubles whatsoever. Now we're not talking about the quality of capture, but we're talking about the playback. Quality of capture is subject to a lot of other factors and a lot of other things, but the playback, if you have a compliant work file format, it's going to play. Usually playback don't really affect the quality of the archives. It's usually the capture. So if you don't have any question about this particular one, how it was done, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions at the end. So now we're moving on. After we sort of explored native format, API approaches, we're exploring some of the current solutions. So let's start off with the first one, the examples of API solutions vendors. This is a list of vendors. Again, I'm sorry if I didn't include everyone. It was just a personal research as well as from my personal knowledge. It's not really a vendors list or some kind of who is better than the other, but all of these have something in common. They archive social media through the API, and they do a pretty good job at it, most of it. For ourselves, we have PHX, which is, you saw the interface on the screenshot. There's a lot of other software that is fully capable of archiving any type of social media on the web. Now, when choosing your social media API sort of connection vendor, there are two things, and these are personal advices from me, from my experience, is that you have either the choice to go with someone that supports so many other platforms, just like some vendors support an incredible amount of platforms. Almost every single platform is supported. Some other vendors support less platforms, but offer a lot of features. Now, if offers a lot of features, offers a look that pretty much resembles Facebook, or sometimes it's just spot on. They reproduce the exact same look and feel of particular social media sites with an accuracy that is phenomenal. So it really is more of a visual choice, because they're all connecting through the API, which means that normally they shouldn't miss any kind of content. So what they offer in terms of features, number one. Number two is the visual, the interface, how it looks like, some of the features, analytics, some of the extra features that you are comfortable with or you like. And third is the cost. Now, these API solutions are, I would say, not very costly. They're extremely affordable for some of them. Some of them are a little bit highly priced, but it's still a low to medium budget, and it's still affordable to most institutions or most companies. So in that particular, I would say, budget-wise, and that's why we see a lot of big institutions or big corporations have almost every subscription to every single service in this particular category because they're just affordable. And it's good to have a lot of services sort of have being covered from each side. There are some examples of vendors. Now, if I forgot about a couple of ones and you know them, you've used them, just let me know. I'll try to include them in the slides and make them available. Now we're moving to native format archiving. Now, if some of you are interested now in native format archiving, and I know that some of you come from institutions that need to create some public collections, sorry, the on-site solutions are the way to go, pretty much. Heritrix here and Wayback Machine are generously provided by the Internet Archive. The first choice, of course, it's the most popular crawler. It's the most popular tools used by thousands, hundreds of thousands of users around the world. It is one of the first softwares, and I believe the most mature software when it comes down to web archiving. It is free, open source as well, so if you're having some kind of on-site engineering team that wants to play around with it or wants to sort of stabilize it or make it better or sort of add a couple of things to it, it is open source. You can play with the source code. And I believe you can reach pretty decent quality with it if you know what you're doing. So it's still one of the most popular way of archiving the web. And now coming to the little bit of downside when it comes down to Heritrix, the Wayback Machine, is that it's open source and it's been created a long time ago, so it's still bearing it's still having some kind of aging sort of DNA, it's a little bit aging now. It's been created in, I believe it started in '96 if I'm not mistaken here. So it's a little bit of an old code as well as open source, so everybody's been adding different versions, so it's been a lot of tweaks, a lot of things that have been improved over the years, but you could still feel that it's kind of reached the limit, or it's kind of almost there to reach the limit of it, where it's sort of not respond well to new technologies, but it still covers most of everyone's needs. And if you're not really looking at archiving a very, very complex website, or you're not really good at tweaking too much things, you could still archive with Heritrix and reach some kind of a decent quality. HTTrack here is a very good website copier. It has an interface. It's available on Windows. It's available for everyone, I believe, and you can just go ahead and download it, try to play with it. It has its limit being a website copier, but it's an incredible software on its own. Third one is sort of the newcomer. It's one of our latest inventions. Some of you have already heard about it. It's CAN Personal Web Archiving. We have developed this software sort of in response to the institutional market, where you would need an on-site solutions, and I personally think that this is the Heritrix of 2013. It does cover 95% of what Heritrix does. It sort of solves 99% of all the issues that we've seen in the past when it comes down to the crawlers, as well as bring on some new features and bring on some innovative things with it, being it easy to use through an interface, the first ever multi-platform personal web archiving experience, where you could just put it on a laptop and run it, and it's going to archive any kind of website that you want. It's pretty much very amazing. It's offering a lot of features, and it's somehow reaching the 100% qualities on most crawls. And if you're well trained and good enough with it, you go in an expert mode, and it's allowing you to really reach the 100% quality when it comes down to very complex websites. But I would say if you have no clue on how to sort of use a web archiving software, you could still copy paste the URL, click on run, and by default it's just going to go ahead and archive any kind of website for you. One of the things that it's still lacking, because it's kind of new, we just launched it about 4 months ago, it's receiving an incredible amount of popularity right now, but it still doesn't have a search engine, full text search engine, and that because we sort of put that on the side for now because it would sort of affect the promise that we made that this is going to be the real personal web archiving experience, and putting in a conventional search engine in it or conventional indexation in it is going to be affecting the performance of the archiving, and that would change a lot of minds about the true personal web archiving experience that they're going to be experiencing while using the software. But bear in mind that we are sort of halfway done through a new way of indexing the data and pulling out the text, and very, very soon Ken is going to have the ability to go ahead and index and to give you full text search through all of your archives. Same thing, we're trying to simplify as much as possible and implementing as much default rules as possible so you would be able to archive the most complex website right out of the box. The quality right out of the box, I would say now 80 to 90% of the websites are archivable with it, even social media sites. The rest 10 or 5% of the web that is extremely complex and using extremely new technologies needs a little bit of work, but we're trying to make it as much automated as possible, so we just go ahead and take care of that for you. So that would be some of the downside. Second, the price. It's not open source like Airtrix. It's not for free, but if you go and take a look at the website, the prices are incredibly low, and I still believe that this is the lowest, not the lowest, but this is sort of the bargain of the century when it comes down to web archiving, whether you go with the managed services or you go with the on-site services. I think the personal version will set you up for $187, and it's a one-time fee. It's sort of a lifetime license, as well as the second version is $2,000. And it allows you to archive, and it has most, I believe, 90% of the features enabled. It's $2,000, and you have over 100 domains. You can archive anything with it, and it's $2,000 for life, perpetual license. And if you really want to go on the big deployment where you're a big institution and you want to start having some type of real collections like Library of Congress or National Library of Canada, or anything else, you could do that. Well, it used to be hundreds of thousands of dollars that you would give someone on a contract services. Here, we're talking at a maximum of $10,000 to $15,000, and having a what we call Ken Institutional, where it's on a pool of machines and it's archiving the entire web, and it's another story. Now, I'm giving you some of the examples. Let's move on to the most popular way of archiving the web, and it's the cloud-based solutions. And here, sorry, and here we have a certain list of vendors and who's the most popular ones, and they're the most popular ones. Again, if I forgot anyone, I'll be more than happy to add it. But in this particular case, what you are doing is you're just accessing the data. You are not archiving. You're not doing anything. You're just going ahead to the vendor and you're asking him to archive a certain set of websites for you. This is not the way to go if you're trying to collect, if you're trying to build a type of collection for public access, because all of these solutions are private access only. Or maybe give you the public access, but it's another story. A little bit harder. Maybe if you would go with Archive It from Internet Archive, and you'd have to see what type of service you're going to be getting. But mostly it's private access. It's aimed for corporate services. It's aimed for institutions. If you have a set of website you want to archive, You have to go to the vendor, through the vendor every time. He's going to perform the archiving for you. What you're going to be viewing is the result only. Accessing just the archives, you'll be just going through the archives using the features of the software, surfing, searching, tagging. A lot of features offer it, different features and different types of access from each vendor. Here we have, but the result is the same. It's your websites archived perfectly. Most of these vendors can reach the 100% quality where they're going to give you excellent results when it comes down to archiving your websites or social media sites. And I believe most of them offer, all of them I believe offer some kind of a native format web archiving experience. Now, not all of them offer the workflow format, but I know that some are offering some kind of bridge or some kind of compatibility with the workflow format. So you really have to check with each one of them. So one of the downsides here, other than the fact that there is no kind of public collections right off the bat, so you need to see with the particular vendor you offer some type of special service or anything, there is the fact that you have to go through the vendor, even us on the Kama Cloud or even with Ken Managed Services. Well, Ken is kind of an exception because it's different, but it's still, you would have to go through us to request a new website to archive. So if you're really want to archive every time there's something new, or if you have a lot of websites, it becomes some kind of painful because I have to go through the vendor, the assessment, the vendor has to go and see the website, and we'll get to the pricing in a second, but the vendor has to go see the website, give you the code, you have to come back and it's, request a new website to be archived, wait for it, and you have to pay every time. So it's not really like Ken where you go and it's a lifetime license and you just archive and nobody tells you anything. But in this case also, well, one of the great advantages is that you have managed services. You don't do anything. You just access through the browser or through plugins or through any type of software. You don't have to go through the archiving process. And the prices, usually cloud-based software is cheaper than an on-premise software. And it is true in most cases. But for web archiving, and especially with the arrival of Ken now, with these prices, it's kind of different because the archiving, the web archiving, the vendor has to go through the archiving. It's infrastructure, it's storage, and it's also a lot of manpower when it comes down to certain solutions. For example, giving you an example on our own Kama Cloud platform, it is 30 to 50% more expensive than Ken Managed Services platform. But these solutions offer more features, a lot of personalized features, full text search, tagging, multiple features. I would say they're extremely developed solutions and better than anything else that you would ever find, providing that you can afford them and also providing that you have just a small set of websites that you want to archive. So that would be, if you have any questions about how this works and how the pricing works, I believe it's different from vendor to another. For us, it's usually on a per page, euro per euro, price per euro, and the frequency of archiving is playing a big role here and affects the overall pricing of the solution, because daily archiving is 365 times archiving sometimes a big website, and the pricing can go all the way up high. If it's monthly or weekly archiving, it's another story. If it's on-demand archiving, and us and certain other vendors offer some kind of automatic on-demand archiving, if there's a triggered event, we call them, it's really based on the frequency of updates of your website. So if you're updating your website every day, yes, we're just capturing the new data, but it's still just capturing the new data, but it's still going back to your website every single day. So this could be a little bit more expensive than just acquiring a $2,000 just a $2,000 license of CAN web archiving. But in certain cases, if you don't have the IT power inside, or if you don't have, or if you just don't want to do anything when it comes down to archiving, you want someone else to manage it, or you acknowledge the importance of having a third party take care of these archiving for you, these archiving actions for you, yes, it might be the solution best for you. Just make sure that you have some kind of exit strategy at the end, and make sure that the output is somehow replayable on another platform. So these are some of the resources that I recommend. And now we're going to be moving to the questions. If you have any kind of questions, just let me know for the question box. I have a couple here. I'll start by answering them. Then I'll just go ahead and try to show you a little bit of a demonstration of how a native format solution is going to look like. For now, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, because I'm going to stop the recording. There's no need to go through the recording of the Q&A session. If you need anything, just let me know in the question box, as well as these slides are going to be available alongside with the recording to download for each one of everyone that just views it. And would like to thank you all for coming another time. So let's just stop recording.